In the last 24 hours, lawmakers from across the country and community leaders here in North Texas have spoken out about the act of violence.
That's right. Our investigative reporter, Morgan Young, has been monitoring it all since it happened yesterday. You joined us live from the newsroom as well as you were kind of following the details. And we've heard a lot of discussions about the rhetoric that officials say can lead to this kind of violence.
Yeah, Mark, that political rhetoric has really been the focus of the reactions we've seen from this incident since it happened, both from law enforcement and elected officials. I mean, looking back to when the news of this first broke, before we even knew the details we know now, the very first statements we saw from officials at the local, state, and federal level denounced violence, called for prayer and support for the people who were hurt, and then particularly from our Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem and Vice President J.D. Vance denouncing violence against ICE agents and law enforcement. And we saw that message really attributing this incident to hostility toward the ICE operations echoed throughout the day, even from President Trump, who wrote in part, "This is despicable. The brave men and women of ICE are just trying to do their jobs and remove the worst of the worst criminals out of our country, but they are facing unprecedented increases in threats, violence, and attacks by deranged radical leftists." The FBI, of course, has said this was a targeted attack, but there is still the question of who was being targeted, because we now know that all three of the victims who were shot were all detainees who were actually in ICE custody, and that no law enforcement was injured. Even so, Secretary Noem went on CNN last night and said that violence against ICE agents is up 1,000% across the country.
Politicians, senators, governors are demonizing them, that we have the opportunity to tell the truth about the work that they do, that what these law enforcement officers doing, they're upholding the law. They're out there literally enforcing just the laws of this country and doing it in a fair and balanced way that doesn't make sure that they're picking one person over another.
Meanwhile, we know there has also been a lot of political rhetoric and hostility toward immigrants in our country. The League of United Latin American Citizens, or LULAC, shared a statement also calling to diffuse political rhetoric, writing, "Violence is never the answer, and our nation must not normalize these horrific acts. We grieve with the families of the victims and urge Americans to lower the temperature in our public discourse."
Now, certainly there's a lot to kind of get into when it comes to the aftermath of this attack, but when you talk about that facility, it's right off 35 in Dallas, kind of an unassuming building. It's not hidden, it's just not marked as a place that is a detainment facility. It's kind of a high traffic area.
Well, it definitely is, and I want to talk about this because the word detention facility has been used quite a bit over the past 24 hours. This is actually a field office, so think of it more as like a hub for the immigration process for detainees or people who are actually already in that process and from North Texas and also parts of Oklahoma. So lots of paperwork, lots of processing, lots of appointments. And this is significant because this is kind of the first stop for someone who's been detained by ICE in our area. So that means a lot of detainees are being transported to and from this facility. So again, working to learn a motive, but whether someone wanted to attack ICE agents or the detainees themselves, this would be a really strategic place to do that.
All right, Morgan, very interesting.